and welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast, the podcast that brings you the best in preparedness information. You can find us online at www.thepreparednesspodcast.com. My name is Rob Hannes, and I'll be the host for the show. You can reach me through email at rob@prepcast.info. Today we're going to be talking about organizing your storage and preparedness supplies. But before we do that, let's go ahead and hit just a few quick announcements. The first Prep Expo I keep talking about is this weekend. So if you hear this podcast just after it gets released, you'll have 1 or 2 days before the expo. My wife and I are going to be there. It's in Mesa, Arizona. Go to the website and search for Prepper Expo in the search box, and you'll find it. If you plan on going, take a look for a couple people walking around with white T-shirts and the Preparedness Podcast logo. That'll be me and my wife. If you plan on being there and see us, stop us and say hi. It'd be great to meet you. On the website, there is a very small banner button that says Listener Survey. If you get a chance and you haven't filled out the survey yet, do me a favor and do so, because that gives me a better understanding of who my audience is and how they listen. And there's a couple places for likes and dislikes that you can leave comments in, and it kind of just gives me kind of keeps my finger on the pulse of you know, what you, the listener, think and stuff. And it's completely anonymous. There's no way I can find out who lead these surveys, because I wish I was, because there's a couple comments we've received that I would have liked to have followed up with some questions, and not even anonymously can I do that. So feel comfortable in knowing that you're completely anonymous when you fill those out. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you can go ahead and blast me, but you know what I'm saying. Before we continue, I'd like to talk about our first sponsor, FlyingEagleGold.com. I just recently finished up the mini-series on hyperinflation, where I explained how inflation works and where it comes from and what it's going to do to our dollar. You have no doubt heard when people talk about gold and silver about protecting your wealth, protecting your savings. Well, what that means is when the dollar goes to zero, meaning that nobody's taking it anymore because it has no value. When it loses its value, gold and silver will still have value. In fact, it will probably have a lot of value. We've seen this recently, just honestly, the past few years. Couple examples is Zimbabwe. You know, their dollar, their currency went to nothing. Nobody would take it. In fact, people had a really hard time taking even the U.S. dollar because it didn't have as much value, but nobody could do anything with it. What they had to use was gold. They panned the river for gold in order to buy the bread they needed in order to eat so they could survive. The other example that it's easy to see is compare the price of gold today with the U.S. dollar index. Now, if you're not familiar with the index, you may have to do a little research, but that's okay, because you'll learn something. And what you're going to find out is that gold is going up and the dollar index is going down. And what that means is that the value of the dollar, which is how much you can buy with the dollar, is dropping. But yet the value of gold, or how much you can buy with gold, is increasing. This is what we mean by protecting your wealth. And Jeff at FlyingEagleGold.com is one of the best guys I know to talk about and buy and get your gold and silver from. He has an excellent grasp of why it's important, and he will work with you to find out what is going to be the best plan for you. Give him a call, 623-327-1778, or go to his website at FlyingEagleGold.com. You can also get to his site through the Preparedness Podcast website. Simply head to the website and look for the Flying Eagle Gold banner. Okay, as I mentioned, this podcast is going to be about organizing your storage and preparedness supplies. And the catalyst of this is from a listener who wrote in with a really good question, and I thought it would be a good topic for the podcast so that I could reach a lot of people with the answer. So this is from a listener named Tony, and he writes, I've been really struggling with organizing my preps in terms of physical storage lately. I was curious of your take on methods that work for you in terms of organization. I have a list and generally organize my food preps, water preps, etc. together, but I've caught myself buying multiple items more than once without an inventory system set up. I've been researching this lately and would really value your input on this subject matter. Thank you. Tony, thanks for posing the question because it's a really great topic. I have been exactly where Tony is, and it isn't fun. I have had a master inventory list where I've gone through everything I had and I wrote it down, and it turned out to be, 20, 25 pages of paper. And actually what I did is I typed it into the computer. And back then it was like an XT PC clone or something like that, running like WordPerfect 5.1. So when it was printed, it was kind of cool because it was all easy to read and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, look at all my stuff. And, so I go through there, and then the problems I had were finding things on the list. Did I put it in this category? Did I put it in this category? And it was not very efficient. Another issue I had was updating the inventory. So I had this piece of paper and I would make notes on it. And eventually I would have to basically redo the inventory because, there are things I forgot to write down, and I would forget things, and I would find out, I didn't actually write down everything that was in this box or in this kit. And it took so long. And I would venture to say that a lot of preppers don't do a complete inventory because it takes so long. It's very tedious. And after a while, you're just like, okay, I got some of this and I got some of that. And, you stop. Or another thing that I've experienced, actually a couple things, is I will have lost the list. And my wife never lets me forget this. I've probably taken an inventory of my ammo, I don't know, half a dozen, maybe 7 times over the past few years. Well, actually not the past few years, just prior to that, because I would do it on paper and I would put it next to my computer here at my desk, and I was going to get to it eventually. I was going to type it into my spreadsheet eventually. Well, I never did. And then either A, I lost it, or B, it was so old or old enough that I wasn't sure if I had changed anything, if I'd gone shooting, if I had bought some more, or if I didn't remember if I'd actually went through all the boxes and stuff. So I've done that list many, many times. So now, over the past couple of years, I've actually developed a system that works really well for me. It saves me a lot of time, a lot of aggravation, and it's very efficient and it's very convenient to use. And I'm going to explain that. First, though, I'm going to cover some storage tips, and I want to get these out of the way. There's just some ideas that you can look at. Now, of course, it would be difficult for me to specify exactly where to store things in your home, mainly because I don't know the layout of your house or apartment or condo or wherever you're living. But here's a few things to consider. Most of us look for closets and shelves and stuff like that to put our preps, because these are the areas that are designed for storage. However, there's a lot of other places in a home, and if you have a small home, then you need to get even, more creative. Some of the places that you may not have thought about are under beds. You can get bed risers that raise the bed up a few inches, and that can provide a lot of extra space underneath. I've seen people who have basically removed the bed frame, the traditional bed frame, and they've built like a box, kind of like if you've seen like a cardboard box that has dividers in there. They do the same thing with wood, put a sheet of plywood over it and throw the mattress back on top, and then basically they've got storage box containers underneath their mattresses. Now, of course, this is only probably best served for long-term storage, but if you think about all the wasted space that's under there, or maybe you've got stuff there, but perhaps it would be more efficiently to be used for preps. Back of closets, yeah, I know we probably already do closets, but if you're looking to store some things, the back of closets, if you have deeper closets or walk-in closets, or the corner of closets can be used for a variety of things. Now, I'm not saying that you take over the whole closet, but I'm saying you can spread out your preps among all the closets that are currently in use. I've even seen water tanks that were specifically designed to go into the corners. So it's basically a triangle on two sides and a curved end on the other. And you can put those in the corner of your closet and take up actually minimal space, but yet have, say, 30 gallons of water storage there. The corners of closets and the sides of closets are also good for small gun safes or small cabinets. Back to beds real quick. If you have children and they have beds, a lot of times they may have toys and stuff in there, but you could throw their packs and their home escape bags and maybe some food and water storage under there, especially if they're like against the wall or something. It makes pretty convenient storage. Even if you use, say, half of the under bed and the other half they could use for their toys or shoes or whatever. I've seen people use end tables and coffee tables as places to store. Some people like to put like a cloth or a tablecloth or I don't know what you call it, but some sort of cloth that hangs over the end table. If it hides what's underneath, and you could store boxes there, either containers of water or food or other preps or even your go bags, really. Same thing with coffee tables. A lot of coffee tables have drawers and lids that open and stuff. You could store stuff there. I saw a video on YouTube a couple years ago about a family that built a very large can rotator that went behind their living room couch. And the can rotator went the entire length of the couch, and they were able to store hundreds of cans of food right there, and it looked like a couch table that you would put behind a couch. And I don't remember how they hid it, or if it was just out of the way that nobody really saw it. But I mean, that's a massive amount of food storage you could put right there. Speaking of can rotators, they sell these units that you can put on the shelf in your pantry, which make it more efficient to store. Or you can buy, freestanding units of the can rotators. Those are really efficient too for space. But what's great about the can rotators is it helps you rotate your food, because it's a first in, first out. You put the can in, and it rotates, it rolls to the back and rolls to the front of the rotator at the bottom. And so if you put your new cans in at the top and you pull the cans you're going to use at the bottom, you're constantly rotating your food storage. And it's a really great way to organize and be able to rotate your food for your pantry stuff. Because if your pantry has stacked cans on it, now we have a small walk-in pantry and the shelves are maybe, 18 inches, 16 inches high, something like that. And if you stack all your cans, 3 or 4 cans high and, 5 or 6 cans deep, I'm guessing that you don't rotate all that often, because it's very difficult. You have to take all the cans out, pull the ones off the back, push the ones in front, to the back, and rotate them manually. So if you store your pantry food that way, I would definitely look at one of those can rotators. Another space that's often goes unused in the kitchen are the back of cabinets. I did this once. I went to every house I went to, friend, family, whatever. I'd open a couple cabinets, like the ones that were closer to the ground, that you have to bend down to use. And I looked in the back of them, and I either found empty space or I found things that they weren't using, like old pots and pans or old baking dishes or something. And so there's a lot of space in the back of these cabinets that you could fill with preps of some kind, either emergency cooking supplies or emergency food or something like that. The kitchen is one place, but you could also do it almost anywhere, and that is to stick extra cabinets. You could either buy an old one and refinish it so it looks really nice. If you have room in your kitchen, you can put it there, or your living room or your family room, or wherever you have room. You can stick these credenzas or these cabinets or something, and you can fill them up. And what's nice about them is they contain your preps, but they look nice. They can be right out in the middle of the room or visible to everybody that comes over, and nobody's the wiser that you've got preps in them. Of course, the garage is a great place to store if it doesn't get too hot or cold, because this can degrade your supplies. You could add shelves, and they even have shelves that hang from the ceiling over your vehicle that support, I don't know, a couple 100 pounds or something. So there's a lot of shelving solutions, and I'm sure you've seen these people who build shelves into their closets along the sides and stuff. But as long as you store items that are going to tolerate the high heat or the freezing temperatures, it's a great place to store your preps. Basements are usually a very good place to store your items because it's generally cooler down there, and the cooler temperatures make things last a little bit longer. However, they can also be very humid, and they have the potential for flooding. I have known a lot of people that have had their things ruined in flooded basements. So if you store your prep items there, make sure you take extra care to ensure that they are either stored high off the floor or packed in waterproof containers. A couple other places you can consider for prep storage are attics and crawl spaces. I don't generally consider them great places to store items, but they can be used for some things. For example, paper products like toilet paper, napkins, paper towels, they should do just fine in the attic, as does, rugged items like hand tools, hammers, screwdrivers, wood, spare wood, stuff like that. Electronics probably aren't a good idea, nor are batteries because of the heat. Or in case of a crawl space, it can be very humid because at least the crawl spaces I'm familiar with have dirt floors. So you can use them, but you really need to take special care of what you're putting there so they don't get ruined. Now, the next thing we're going to cover are some tips for better tracking of your gear and supplies. But before I jump into that, I want to talk about our second sponsor, seedsnow.com. If you haven't been to the seedsnow.com website, you really should check it out. It's pretty cool. I'm on there right now, and I'm looking at it, and they've got a ton of seeds. I mean, I'm looking at 40 types of seeds groups right here that you can buy by the pack, like onions, melons, peppers, tomatoes, herbs, grains, corn, cucumbers. I mean, they have all these things here that you can just click on these and shop those types of seeds. They also have these cool packs. They've got an herbal medicine seed bank that contains everything that you would think you'd have for herbal medicine. They've got these all-in-one tomato packs. They've got these seed-starting soil pellets that you just add water. And they got something I think is really cool. These are seed bombs. You need to check this out. Go to the website and check out what these seed bombs are. I saw these and I'm like, these are a great idea. I really like the idea of this concept. Anyway, seedsnow.com has the seeds that you need to be able to grow a garden. We already covered in the past few podcasts about the coming inflation and how it's going to be more and more difficult to buy food because the prices are going up. Wouldn't it be great if you could grow your own food? Now, these seeds are heirloom seeds. They're 100% non-GMO. This means that you can grow the food and eat this great tasting food and know that they're not genetically modified, but then you can take the seeds, save them, and grow the same food again and again and again. If you're looking at being able to grow your own food because of tough times, these are the type of seeds you want. You can't get them at Walmart. You can't get them at Home Depot. You never know what you're quite getting there. These are the seeds that you're going to want to start growing your garden with. Okay, so let's say that you're not quite ready to start growing your garden. That's fine. These seeds are packaged to store for a long time. So you can plan your future garden. You can say, okay, planning for the future, planning for the inflation. Honey, this is what we're going to grow our garden when we need to. We can start saving up the seeds now and have them when we need them. Right now, the listeners of the Preparedness podcast can get an extra 10% discount by using the coupon code PREP10. That's PREP10 when you order. That's seedsnow.com, or go to the website and click on the seedsnow.com banner. The second part of Tony's question had to do with having an inventorying system that was set up that he could use more efficiently than what he was using. As I've mentioned earlier, using one big master inventory list, especially something that's on paper, doesn't really work out so well. Even typed up as a text document on your computer, it's still far too limiting. It's just not a very efficient way to keep track of all your gear and supplies. Speaking of which, this reminds me, I want to go over a couple definitions that I use frequently. The term preps refers to general preparations that you make. It's used both as a noun to refer to your preparedness gear and supplies, and as a verb to describe the action of actually getting prepared. You will also often hear me say gear and supplies or equipment and supplies together. To me, the terms gear and equipment refer to durable goods like tools, grain mills, guns, pots and pans, things that aren't used up and they don't need to be replaced very often or resupplied very often. Supplies, on the other hand, to me refers to consumables such as food, water, water filter elements, ammunition, and so on. So anything that is durable would be gear or equipment. Anything that's consumable are supplies. That's how I look at it. Okay, back to inventory lists. I have several groups of prep supplies, and the group that an item will fall under will generally dictate to me how I can store it. For example, here are my main groupings. Everyday/pantry, evacuation/bug out, long-term/bulk, and then miscellaneous. Now, these groupings are more of an abstract thought than they are actual groups. I don't actually group all of my miscellaneous together. I don't group all of my pantry and everyday stuff together. But when I categorize them into these groups, then it kind of tells me how I can store it, whether I need to store it about the house as normal, or if it's something I would need to grab in an evacuation, or if it's something I can put away and pack deeper away someplace because I don't expect to use it unless I'm in a long-term survival situation. And of course, not every item fits into one of these categories neatly, but that's okay because most of them do. The everyday/pantry group includes the everyday items that we use on a regular basis, and we're just bulking up to increase the amount that we have on hand. This includes foods that we buy at the grocery store and eat every day. It also includes toiletries and sundries. Now, little side note here again, to me, sundries are minor things that either don't fit into a single category or they're so minor that it's not really worth making a new category for them. To me, this is things like lip balm, pencils, paper, tissues, trash bags, Ziploc baggies, hand lotion, Lysol spray, things like that. You can tell they don't necessarily easily fit into one category or another, or they may fit more than one category. I usually have two groups of sundries, and that seems to cover most things. One is for like the bathroom and toiletries, and the other one is for kitchen stuff. Now, sundries is kind of an archaic word, but I use it as a general category for miscellaneous items that don't neatly fit anywhere else. And now, another side note here is one of the things that I've noticed that really helps with organization is to reduce the number of categories that you have for all your stuff. It's far easier to manage 20 categories than it is to manage, say, 40 or more. Some of the other items that might go into the everyday pantry group include things like a home first aid kit, a sewing kit, and common hand tools. Other things that would be included here, just to kind of give a better understanding of how I'm looking at this. Your prescription medicines, if you have any over-the-counter medicines, aspirin, Tylenol, stuff like that, maybe cough medicine for the kids. Those sort of things are your everyday items. Now, in the evacuation/bug out group, these are all the bags that we have that we would grab if we ever had to bug out or evacuate. And because I'm mentioning it, just another quick set of definitions here. To me, an evacuation is a temporary thing. Let's say there's a chemical spill and you have to evacuate, but you fully expect to return. It's a short-term thing. A bug out, on the other hand, is what you do when you don't really expect a return. Say, maybe nuclear fallout, or a tsunami is going to hit the coast where you live. So, something like that would be considered a bug out. Now, my wife and I have a set of go bags that we call fast packs. Each set of these fast packs is a grouping of bags that we have identified as what we're going to grab first if we ever have to leave quickly. I think I've talked about these fast packs before on another podcast, but because we have so many new listeners, I am planning to go over them again in an upcoming podcast, so I'm not going to be very descriptive about them here. The long-term / bulk group contains pretty much what you would expect, given the name, things that we would need for longer periods of survival. The main items here would be things like bulk foods, whether they're like beans and rice or freeze-dried and dehydrated, water storage, long-term water filtration, possibly any sort of alternate power generation. These are the long-term items. Now, the miscellaneous groups includes things like camping gear and all those various tote bins, boxes, ammos, carts, crates, whatever you got laying around that you have stuff in, but they're not really part of your main supplies. Or like if you were in the military, you probably have old military gear like I have. I don't want to throw it away, but it's not really part of my primary set of preparedness gear. Now, personally, this is the hardest group for me to keep an inventory on, and it's probably not because it changes a lot. It's because I don't really take the time to do a detailed enough inventory to begin with, and that's because there's so many little things in some of these boxes. It's just I'm not going to write down, all the little Marine Corps memorabilia or all the little types of different pencils I've gotten or the little badges. I'm just not going to do it. It takes too much time. But I suffer because when I say, oh, where is that thing? I knew I just saw it in the green tote bin, but I've got like 12 green tote bins and I can't remember where they are. And I start to look for them and basically I give up because I just don't know where it is. However, my new system that I've been using completely alleviates that, and we'll be getting to that soon. As I mentioned, the type of group that an item falls under pretty much tells you how you can store it. So everyday items obviously will be stored around your home where you can get at them quickly and on a regular basis. The evacuation, bug out stuff, for us, we put it in a central closet. It's relatively easy to get to. It's kind of packed away, but it would take about a minute to start pulling that stuff out. Now, if my wife has to leave when I'm not home, one of the things we've done is I have marked all of her fast packs with light blue yarn. This lets her quickly know which packs she needs to grab because we have a lot of the bags that look the same, and she doesn't have to waste time stopping to try to figure out if this is my bag or her bag. She knows if it's got light blue yarn on it, she just grabs it and goes. The long-term bulk group is usually the stuff I pack away deeply. For example, in the corner of closets, high on shelves, back in the deep recesses of closets or under beds, or anything that's out of the way and isn't really obvious or is a hindrance. Under beds and under tables are good. Just wherever you can place it, but you need to make sure that you, A, write down the location of where you're storing these things, and B, write down what you've stored there. That way you don't forget about them. And of course, the other important thing that you need to remember to do is to keep meticulous notes on where and what you're storing. Now, we already know this, which is why we're going over how we can do this more efficiently. I used to use a spreadsheet for all of my inventory. Now, I still have some of the lists of my stuff, like my fastbacks, in a spreadsheet. However, as I do the next round of gear checks, which is when I go through everything and check to make sure that everything is working and is serviceable, I check to see what needs to be replaced, either due to expiration dates or deterioration or whatever needs to be replaced. When I do that, I'll be converting over to the newer method that I've been using, which I'll get to in a moment. I'm just going to quickly cover using a spreadsheet in case that's how you choose to do your list. Here's what's worked really well for me. Now, to start, I have a spreadsheet for each major group. Again, you can make your groups whatever you want, but those are what I have. When I say separate spreadsheet, I mean a separate file that's on your computer. Within the spreadsheet, I have several pages or sheets, one for each list of inventory. Let's take, for example, my fast packs and look at the spreadsheet format that I have. Within the spreadsheet for the evacuation/fast packs group, I have a separate sheet for each bag, and that sheet lists everything that's in that bag. I also have one sheet that is the evacuation grab list. So this is the stuff that we would grab on the way out if we had time. Now, it takes a while to make this list, and just like the paper inventory, the Achilles heel lies in how detailed you make your list. If you skip some details to speed up the inventory process, you're not going to have a properly cataloged of your preps, and so you're going to be missing that data, and you may not know that until you actually go back and try to look up some stuff. So, for example, here are some of the bags that are in my fast packs. I have a main fast pack, I have an extension pack, a medical kit, a food kit, the kids' bags, and my gun bags. Once I have all the items typed into their separate sheets within the spreadsheet, it's just really a matter of organizing lists so it's easier to find things. You may categorize them. You know, within the my main fast pack, I have shelter items, I have food items, I have water items, and you can sort those on your computer just so it's easier to find things. Now, up until recently, there really wasn't a better way of doing this. Even if you had a database program, which I've tried several, you still had to set up the database, and I mean actually set up the database structure. Then you had to enter in all the items, taking care to make sure that you selected the proper categories and whatever you had in the database so that you could actually find these items later, because that's what a database is good for. It just wasn't efficient enough. It really had a huge limitation because it was a matter of looking at an item and typing it in, and then looking at it and typing it in, and the amount of detail you put into it really dictated how well your inventory was. However, what I've been using lately is far superior and much more efficient, as you're about to find out. There are several different applications and programs that are similar, but I'm going to suggest that you use Evernote. Of course, you can use any similar application and get the same results, but I'm going to be talking about Evernote because it is ubiquitous. It's available everywhere for Macs and PCs, for mobile devices like iPhones and iPads and Androids. There's probably even a version for Fisher-Price. Basically, Evernote is a place for you to store your notes and information snippets. These snippets can be text, web pages, pictures, audio, and a lot of other different types of information. I'm not going to go into all the things you can do with it. I'll let you explore it on your own, though I am going to explain how you can use it to get better organized with your preps. All of your information is synced between all of your devices to all the other Evernotes that you have on all your other devices. So what you enter on your phone will show up on your computer and vice versa. This makes this an incredibly powerful inventory tool, as you can enter stuff on your phone or tablet and it automatically appears on your computer. And no, I didn't make up that term, it actually is a real word. You can also password protect your notes, so you don't have to worry about losing your phone and then have someone go through your phone and find out all the preps that you have. Additionally, if you lose your phone or your computer crashes, the information, because it's synced to all your devices, you still have the information. Now, if you think about it, an application like this is a very good idea to use for your survival and preparedness notes database. You know, all the information that you collect from the internet and elsewhere that you store, so you have that information with you. An application like this makes really good sense to use. Okay, now let's take a look at how we can use the power of this technology to our advantage. Let's say you're going to inventory your bulk food storage. Now, first, you would open up Evernote and you would make a new notebook and call it something descriptive so you know what it is that's contained within inside. Let's call this notebook Bulk Food Storage. Next, you're going to pull out all your food storage from wherever you have it stored and lay them out on the table or the floor. Likewise, if you just bought some new items that you're going to add to the storage, you would do the same thing. You would lay it out so you can start taking some notes on it. Next, you're going to select an item and you're going to log it into the note. With bulk food storage, we're usually talking about a lot of buckets and boxes or containers with cans or pouches. In the new note that you made, you're going to type in a description for the item or items. Now, how you organize your notes is up to you. Since all of these items are stored in the same location, you could simply make one note for that location. Or you could group like items together into a single note. Again, you have complete flexibility with this. Now, the great thing about this is that it doesn't really matter how you do it initially, because if you don't like how you have it grouped, you can always change it later on your computer. You can probably do it on your phone or your tablet as well, but having a keyboard and a mouse and a full screen makes it much easier. But the point is that the power is yours. You can just take notes after notes and then organize it later. It doesn't matter. Okay, for example, I have 4 37-gallon buckets of powdered milk. I'm not going to make a separate note for each bucket. I'm going to put all 4 buckets into the same note. When I create a new note for this milk, I'm going to title the note something like that makes sense, something that I can know what it's about. So I'm going to name it powdered milk. When I write a short description of what the item is, I'm going to include any information that I can think of about where I bought it, when I bought it, what the expiration date is, how much of the item there is, and anything that you can think of, like maybe where it's stored, or if there is another component that goes with it that's stored someplace else. Anything you can think of, you want to type in there. Now, in this case, I wrote low-fat dry milk, 4 37-pound buckets. And then I had some information about the expiration date and where I bought it and stuff like that. Now, here's where the really cool and efficient part comes in. I took all the notes for my bulk food storage with my iPhone. The typing wasn't the easiest because it's a small little virtual keypad, but it really wasn't all that bad. Then I hit the camera icon in Evernote and I took 3 pictures of one of the buckets. I captured every side of the bucket and I made it so that I could read every word that was on the bucket. This allows me to go back to that note and see the bucket, and I can read what's on the outside of the bucket anytime I want without having to pull out that bucket from storage. To me, this is a huge advantage over the old way that we used to do things. The notes for my number 10 cans of food storage also have pictures in them. Actually, all my inventory has pictures in it. So if I ever have a question about them, like what's the ingredients of this can of food or how many servings are in a can, I don't have to pull out the can. I just need to look at the pictures. Now, if you think about this, this makes it incredibly efficient. So, for example, in my fast pack, I have a first aid kit. And in that first aid kit, there's a bunch of little items, Band-Aids and iodine and all that stuff. You know what? I don't want to have to list out everything. I put down first aid kit, and I take a picture of all the items that are in there. And then anytime I want to know what's in the first aid kit, I can just look at the picture. If I want to make an itemized list later, where I'm sitting at the comfort of my computer, no problem. I pull up the picture and I can start typing. And just to be clear, I don't take a picture of every Band-Aid and every swab. I take a group picture of the items. So, for example, this comes in super handy when you're inventorying containers that have a lot of things in them. I have a lot of tote bins all throughout my house and garage. They contain so many things that there's no way I can keep it all in my head, and writing down every little thing that's in each container, well, to be honest, it just doesn't happen because it's just a pain to do. Now, however, I don't need to. All I have to do is create a note with within the appropriate notebook, say garage tote bins, and I take pictures of all the stuff that's in each bin. I even take pictures of the container so I know exactly what the container looks like, which makes it easy to find it. Now, this is particularly useful when you're doing things like ammo cans, where each one is slightly different. It might have different paint or different markings, and knowing what that container or that can looks like makes it a lot easier to find when you're trying to look through, half a dozen or a dozen items and you're having to lean over something else to get there. Now, I will write down all the significant aspects of what's in that container, but I don't write down everything. Basically, what I write down are anything that I would want to search for, so keywords or tags. Because one of the best things about software like this is that you can search for a word. So, for example, if I have a tote bin or a cardboard box that has some of my old military gear in it, I'm going to title a note something like military gear tote bin number 1. And if I have more than one, it'd be number 2, number 3, etc. In the note, I'm going to type some basic items. These basic items would be things like harness, canteen cover, magazine pouches, LBE, web belt, and so on. You want to type these words in because one of the, as I said, the powerful features of the software is the ability to do a search. So in other words, if you're looking for all the boxes that have your canteens in them, all you have to do in Evernote is search for canteen, and it's going to pull up all the notes that it found that word in it, and you'll be able to see where all your canteens are. That, by far, is way more powerful than having to do the old paper and pen inventory and even the spreadsheet. Even those spreadsheets you can search, be able to have just the list of the containers that you want to see is golden. It's the epitome of efficiency. Okay, by now I hope you've gotten a good idea of how to use the software and how we can use it to become better organized. And I at least hope I've done a good enough job of explaining how it works because this has completely changed how I do my inventory. Now, because all the notes are synced and you can sync it to your phone, another aspect is that you can always have an up-to-date inventory list with you at all times. This means that if you ever have a question of, gee, do I have one of these? You can look it up. Now, because these notes are synced, one of the things I suggest is that you create a buy list. And this is the list of all the things that you still need to get. If you put your buy list in Evernote and sync it to your phone, the next time you're out and about and you have an opportunity to buy something for your preps, you're going to have that list with you and you're going to be able to check it. So you do your inventory, you compile your stuff, you make your buy list. Now, once you've got your buy list, you need to prioritize it. You need to prioritize it so that you aren't buying things that you don't really need, or if you need other things first. You want to be spending your money on the things that have a higher priority and not wasting it on things that you don't really need. A simple way to prioritize is just to have 2 or 3 groups. I mean, you can spread it out however you want, but just something as simple as if you want to do 2 groups, it's either needs and wants. Or you could have 3 groups and say something like must have, should have, would like to have, or high, medium, low priority. Something like it, whatever makes sense to you, so that when you pull up your buy list, you can see that, oh, pot holders is a low priority and cast iron skillet is a high priority. So you know where to spend your money, so that when you're out and about and you have an opportunity, you can make really well-informed decisions on what you need to get. Now, of course, once you buy something on your buy list, you can take it off the buy list. When you get home and you have some new preps, open up the appropriate notebook, take some pictures and some notes about your new preps, or let's say you already have some cast iron and you're adding a new Dutch oven, go to that cast iron note depending on where you're storing and how you organize. But basically, you're going to take some notes, some quick notes. Let's say it's a 16-inch Dutch oven from Lodge. You bought it on October 3rd, 2012, and you take some pictures of it so you know what it is. Tony, I want to thank you for emailing me that question. I think it was a great question. I hope I was able to help you and the listeners in giving you some ideas on how you can take and keep track of your inventory in a more effective and efficient manner. You can reach me through the website at www.thepreparednesspodcast.com. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/preparednesspodcast and on Twitter as Prepcast. And of course, you can always email me directly at rob@prepcast.info. I want to thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast. Until next time, enjoy life and be safe.